there, this is Monica Ray, your Encourager-in-Chief, and welcome to the TheBestYou.Site podcast, where we showcase ordinary people accomplishing extraordinary things. And here we share transformative stories that expand what we think and what we can do. Today on our inaugural podcast, our guest is Gertie Smith, a 3-time cancer survivor who shows us not only how to survive, but has provided a lifeline of understanding and compassion to so many dealing with difficult diagnoses. It's time for the TheBestYou.Site podcast.
Hate Mondays? Sign up for your Monday Pep Talk, a weekly email sent out every Monday with an encouraging video to help you have a great week. Sign up at TheBestYou.Site.
If you were to see Gertie Smith with her vibrant, long, beautiful hair, spectacular smile, and experience her warm hug, you would have no idea of the personal battles this lady has fought. She was first diagnosed in 1997 and since that time has dealt with 2 additional cancers. I met her, I think, before the last one. As you will see, there are numerous wonderful things about her, but the thing that's dearest to my heart is that she took the time and energy to pull me up when I was in a particular crisis and I was in a desperate place. Welcome. We're thrilled you're joining us today. Thank you for opening up about this difficult subject. This is very personal, and I appreciate the fact that because of your love for people and willingness to help, you would allow yourself to go back through this painful journey. Thank you, Gertie, and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's get started by, would you please share with us your timeline for your battle with cancer?
Okay. I was first diagnosed in 1997. That was roughly 25 years ago. And it was aggressive breast cancer in my right breast that has spread to my lymph nodes. The second cancer was 2005, 8 years later. And I discovered it during one of my routine examinations in the shower. Wow. And when I found that, it felt like a little slick rock pebble. And it felt unusual. So I went and had it checked out, and it turned out to be cancer. And it was small, and it was in the early stage. And then the last cancer happened roughly almost a year after I retired in 2014. And it was discovered also. Wow. And it did not have any, spread. So it was considered early stage also. Wow. And one thing that was really good about all of that, it was not a reoccurrence. Each cancer was different from the first one, the second one. They were all different. So therefore, they could treat me as if it was the first time. Those are my first time having cancer, because each one was located in a different area, had different properties about it. And wow. That was that was very unusual.
Very unusual. But what wonderful information for the audience, that just to know that fact. Mm-hmm. I've heard from the moment that you hear the word cancer, the C word, your life changes. Can you share a couple of points of what hearing that did to you?
Oh, yes. That was, I felt very devastated, especially the first time. The second time, it was a little different, but it still hits very hard because cancer, as we know, can be very aggressive. It's sort of one of those things you don't know until you know. But I felt like, I felt like my life, like I knew it was over, and it seemed like everything came to a screeching halt. I thought about my job, my family, my daughters, and, and our thoughts about, what will I be here to see them graduate, or, they're in school. And there were just so many things that, we had planned and events. But the one thing that just kept coming up was that it was the fear that I was feeling, fear of the unknown, and will this look, how will this look later on? So I was dealing with a lot, and usually that happens to most people.
How could it not? You said I had a life going on, and it came to a screeching halt, just like you hit the brakes. How did you handle that change of, okay, life's going on, and then screeching halt?
Oh, yeah.
Like brakes.
Well, at first, yes, exactly. At first, it was very difficult. My thoughts and fears, your thoughts and fears that's your thoughts, they guide you. And then, I went through this period where I would wake up at 2 a.m. every night and could not go back to sleep. So you're left there with nothing but your thoughts, and so it was wearing me out. And then I realized after a certain point, that I had to take control. The fear, and, I remember thinking, cancer is not going to kill me anytime soon.
Cancer is not going to kill me. Okay.
But what I was doing to myself, and the terror that I was going through, I realized that was going to take me out. It would take me out from being a part of my treatment, and being an advocate for myself. And I realized I had to fight to live. People always say that,
wow,
yes, that they fought with cancer. And I used to think, why would they say that? But it's a fight. You're fighting for your life, and you have to do some things in order to live.
You mentioned the fear. And to me, fear is a mighty paralyzer. It's paralyzed so many parts of my life. So how did you, over time, deal with the fear? You were dealing with what most people would consider one of the worst things you can deal with. So how did you deal with the fear?
Well, mine was a real fear. To some degree. Sometimes, we're all fearful of the unknown. But my first cancer diagnosis was not good. And it was aggressive, like I said before, and it spread to my lymph nodes. But less than 6 years prior, my sister, that was 6 years older than me, had died from cancer. And I was one of her primary caregivers. And she had a very, it was traumatic for her, the loss of her, and then what she went through and I went through with her. Those things were still, like I was still dealing with those things. And her diagnosis was better than my diagnosis. So
really?
I said, so yes, it was better than my diagnosis. They had caught it early, and she received radiation treatment, but she did, anyway, it ended up coming back. It was an aggressive cancer. So that had an impact on me. And, but I finally came to the conclusion that I needed to deal with the cards that had been dealt to me if I wanted to be here for my family and to live. And so I realized that I had to really fight the fear. And so I did 2 things. The first, I started becoming knowledgeable. I started working on becoming knowledgeable about my diagnosis. I wanted to know what was the best practice treatment. And at that time, very little information was was given to me from the doctors. So I ended up, at that time, I called the American Cancer Society hotline, and they had doctors.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. I developed a relationship with one doctor specifically, and he provided me a lot of literature on my diagnosis, and we talked about it and which way to go. I also purchased the Susan B. Coleman's breast cancer book, very popular back then, still is. And but it was huge. But I digested it as much as I could by going in and finding areas that pertain to my diagnosis. And so with all of those things, I started finding doctors, figuring out where to go to get the best treatment, where to go to get a second or third opinion. And I called friends in the medical field to see, for referrals. I just did it all. And that helped. That helped a tremendous amount. And then the next thing I did, which turned out to be one of the best things, I called, I tried to figure out, I've always been religious, but when you hit those trials and tribulations, and you realize that maybe you're lacking in some areas, and maybe in a lot of areas, let me say that.
Speak to us, girl. Yes.
And so I figured that, and I ended up spending more time. I wanted to make sure of my relationship with God. And I ended up spending more time on that than I did even on the medical part, because it's one thing to be religious, and there's another thing to make it work for you, let it work in your life. And I realized that my faith needed a lot of work. And so I actually, in the midst of all that, what calmed me and calmed the storm in the midst of everything that was going on, I started reading and studying my Bible and focusing in on faith, and that helped a lot, because one of my favorite books in the Bible is Hebrews chapter 11. You have the faith walk of people in the Bible that were going through terrible things, and
the heroes of faith chapter.
Yes, the heroes
some people
of faith.
Call it. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and that strengthened me, and because faith, having strong faith is powerful. It's more powerful than anything. I cannot get into all the things that having faith helped me in this gauntlet that I had to go through, because faith will make you do things you've never done before. It will make you feel like you can walk over water without a bridge. And,
walk over water without a bridge.
Yes.
Whoa.
And many examples of some of the test results and things that doctor would tell me it would just be bad information. I mean, terrible information. But I remember walking out of their office and saying, I'm gonna wait to see what God will do. I know that, and I said, I've always said the thing I say most is God is bigger than cancer. And faith, yes, and faith is where we wait and wait for God. And one thing that helped me, I was so fearful of death, of early death, that it even calmed those fears. I don't think about death like I used to. And that was paramount for me. That was the biggest thing, the fear and understanding that God is in control. And from all the things that I've gone through, he has always held me up and kept me from slipping. So,
good information, being an advocate for yourself. And I just love how you talk about that, and how you talk about that that faith that you developed. And when you said that they gave you bad information, help me understand, it wasn't bad information because it wasn't accurate. It was like negative, that bad things were going to happen based on what you were dealing with cancer. Is that what you meant? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
Oh, no. They did the mammograms, ultrasounds, test results.
Okay.
And I was in the ultrasound. The doctor actually came in because I was asking questions, and she told me, she said, "It looks really bad for you, Miss Smith." She said, that cancer, it was the second cancer. She said, "It looked like it had spread to your chest wall." Oh, wow. And she told me that, and I actually could see the dark spots she was talking about, which, you know, they usually show up as dark spots on cancer, on the ultrasound. I decided not to tell my husband that was waiting for me. I said, I'll just wait on God to see what he does. After I came out of surgery later on, the doctor told me that they tested it and they did everything, you know, while I was in there, and that it had not spread to my chest wall.
Okay, so I got to stop and have a hallelujah moment. Wow. I got to stop right here. Hallelujah moment.
Yes, praise God.
It had not spread even after they told you that it did not look good. Wow.
Right.
I can't wait to continue this conversation with Gertie Smith, and we'll be right back.
Learning to Splash, Conquering the Life You Have Been Given, is a heart-wrenching story written by Monica Ray. This book takes you on an intimate, decades-long journey of one woman's battle with watching her only child confront debilitating chronic illness while dealing with feelings of inadequacy, guilt, depression, and helplessness. Learning to Splash, Conquering the Life You Have Been Given is available at TheBestYou.Site.
We're back at TheBestYou.Site podcast. This is Monica Ray, still talking with the amazing Gertie Smith, who is not only a 3-time cancer survivor, but also a wife, a mother, a grandmother. Her work career included being a social worker and a protection from harm investigator. And after she retired from that, she really went to work. Gertie, one of the things that stood out, and you and I have been back and forth about this, she's like, I don't know about, she was a protection from harm investigator. A protection from harm investigator at the same time that she's dealing with all these personal health issues in her own life. Can you share why you stayed in such a difficult, demanding role on top of everything else?
Well, it was very difficult. It was like every day it was negativity, but the positive upside of it was the individuals that needed help. And I remember thinking one time that if I needed help, I would pray and hope one person walked through that door would care enough to help me out, to help my situation out. And when I thought about it like that, everything changed because I could relate to that. The people that actually approached me when they found out that I was going through cancer, that told me about changing my eating, the way I eat, to go organic and to do all these things. And, you know, and it was obvious that, I mean, what my answer was going to be, to stay and to do the best I could.
So putting yourself out for others in the middle of this actually turned around and blessed you too. That, you know, that's just because I remember when I was in crisis and I would call you upset in tears, all those kinds of things. And you took the time, as crazy as I guess you might've been having to go to court or whatever, but you took the time to listen and hear my tears, to let me get it out and to give me direction. And I can say, honestly, one of the things you always did was direct me back to God. Always. And that, to me, I call you my guardian angel. You are my guardian angel on earth. God knew I needed you. God knew I needed you. So let's change gears because we don't want to just talk about the medical. We want to talk about you. What words of comfort and support can you share with our audience? What would you want them to know as far as your walk, your journey?
Well, one thing that has happened that I never thought would happen is that I get a chance to help people when they're going through this, like the worst part of their existence, dealing with cancer. And at first, when I started out, it was, you get to know a person, you get to know all about them, you develop a relationship, you have these feelings, and it was just, it will bring you down to your knees. And I said, I can't do this. But no matter what I felt, it just didn't I kept going back to it, and that's what I have been doing over the last 20 years. It's just helping people.
You couldn't let it go, even though you knew it was. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but you couldn't let it go. You had to help, even though it was very. Yes. It absorbed you as well, but you had to help.
Yes.
That's a testimony. That tells so much just about who you are as a human being, which I already knew. I just wanted our audience to know. Wow.
Well,
I've always experienced that from you.
Well, I've always felt that God has given me so much. Mm-hmm. And it just is my privilege to do as much as I can in my little small way, because I want God to know that I thank him, and I'm never backed away from that. When I help others, I know, in a way we can be his hands. And I think that, like how we met, it just didn't happen by chance.
Correct.
And I truly believe that God is in the midst of all of this. Mm-hmm. And because one thing in helping people, my words of comfort or wisdom is that I want to, encourage everyone, first and foremost, do not let the possibility of a diagnosis or even an actual diagnosis keep you from obtaining medical treatment in a timely manner. My first cancer has spread to my lymph nodes because of the fear I was feeling, because of what I had gone through with my sister, and I had other family members that had, had cancer, and so I almost let that overtake me. Mm-hmm. And one thing that the upside of that is early detection is the best way. And what I've always heard people say when I'm sitting in the waiting room with them, I'm at the doctor's office, they will say, I know I shouldn't have waited. I wish I had done something earlier. I knew I had that pain. I just wouldn't, so now I know what it is, but I should have done something earlier. And one thing about it, cancer treatment has improved so much over the years. From when I first had it, people actually can work and they don't have all that nausea and sickness anymore. Side effects are managed very well. And one thing there's like, when you're in a waiting room, you talk to people sitting around you, and they tell you their situations. And it's like two roads. The people that wait, they have a rough road to go. It's a lot of hills, a lot of bumps they have to go over. And for those that have an early diagnosis, it's much, much easier. And the duration of it is shorter, and all of those things. And another thing that I found, for people that do not have a belief system, it's really difficult for them. And for me, it was difficult for me. It was super difficult for me until I got on top of it and checked myself, because my belief system is my relationship with God. And that in itself will sustain you. It will calm the fears, and it will actually give you relief, because it's not, and the Bible tells us that it's not in us to direct ourselves, but God makes a world of difference.
Oh, have I learned that?
Yes.
Because I was one of his hard-headed children. Have I learned that? So a belief system made such a difference. Belief system.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Amazing.
And the American Medical Society did gold studies on that. And for the patients that had a belief system, they did better in treatment. They survived. And then the group that they had that did not have a belief system. So, one thing in this journey also, I feel like people should not be afraid to ask for help.
Ask for help.
And and become knowledgeable about what they're going through and be your best advocate. Those are the main things that I think can make a difference.
I think you said something, girl. I think you said something. I consider you a person who has chosen to live a joyful life. You've encouraged me so many times. We've lost count. So I want to know, and I want you to share with your audience, with our audience, what have you done that you thought you would never do? And what have you been able to experience that you thought you never would?
Simply put, life. I mean, that was in question. But the most important thing is that, I never thought I would be a mentor to people going through cancer.
And other things, throw in the and other things. Monica Ray is a witness. And other things.
Yeah. Yes. But God has blessed me in that they have become of so much benefit to me. And I never thought I would see my daughters graduate from high school, and my little feeble, humble prayer was, let me see them graduate from high school. But God saw fit that they graduated not only from high school, from college, from law school, from Paul Mitchell beauty school, and it goes on. And I never thought I would see my grandchild.
And your grandchild. And your grandchild.
Yes.
All I can say is watch God move. That's it. Watch God move. And your grandchild. Yes. So you have professional daughters that have been able to go through professional paths in their education, and you have a beautiful grandchild.
Yes, and I was there for all of those things. And they got married. And yes, and I was a part of all of that. And I look back, and most of the time, people that know me well, they say, "I don't remember you being sick." And I said, "Well, I haven't really been sick. I haven't felt sick a day in my life."
Wait, stop.
But I've gone through.
Wait, chemo, surgeries, and you've never been sick a day in your life. Oh,
right.
No, let me shut up. You talk. Wow.
Well, yeah, and radiation, chemo. Wow. I stopped counting at about 20 surgeries. I've had that many surgeries, and I've actually had more. But, the thing about it is, I've always felt that God left the windows of heaven open for me. Never through all of this, it was never closed. So, I just feel like I have to work and do the things to show my appreciation to him, because when I look back on what it makes me have goosebumps to think about what I've gone through. But that's when I look at it through my eyes. But I know what God can do. And but cancer is something that God is bigger than cancer. God is bigger than all of the things that we go through. And it takes that step forward to let him lead, because I think that's the only reason I've made it through.
Wow. You know, you talk about goosebumps. You listening to your story makes me want to cry and shout and goosebumps and chill and all of that. Chills. I mean, it's just so astounding how God has brought you through and saved you for us. Is what I believe. For his purpose, number one, but also saved you for us. And I'm just so grateful for that. Thank you. Gertie, my guardian angel, thank you for opening up to help others as you have so many. This is going to bless lives. This is going to bless lives, even more than it's blessed mine. Blessed mine. I always want our podcast listeners to have some things to put in their pockets to take with them from our speakers. And I have a couple of points that just stick out from what Gertie said. She said, I've never been sick a day in my life. Just that outlook, just that attitude, you know, it's transformative. And the other thing that sticks with me that she said is that faith will let you walk over a river with no bridge. We're putting that in our pocket and we're going to pull it out when we need it. Thank you, my dear friend. I could not have asked for a more spectacular, honest, genuine, truthful, special friend than you. Thank you for all you do.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. We want to thank our audience for listening to this episode of the TheBestYou.Site podcast. Want your story featured? Submit a 1,000-word story of ordinary people doing mind-blowing things at TheBestYou.Site. This is Monica Ray, thanking you for the privilege of your time.